Miss Chen, I understand every word.
Impossible.
The laughter rippled through the opulent dining room of the Golden Lotus, one of Chicago's most prestigious Chinese fusion restaurants, nestled in the heart of the bustling Magnificent Mile. It was a crisp autumn evening in 2023, and the air was thick with the aroma of sizzling Peking duck and aged scotch. At the center table sat Victoria Chun, a formidable Chinese billionaire whose family empire, Chun Global Technologies, spanned continents and boasted a valuation north of $50 billion. She was in town to seal a massive deal on semiconductor imports, surrounded by 5 eager American executives from Midwest Electronics, all desperate to curry favor with the woman who could make or break their quarterly reports. Victoria leaned back in her plush leather chair, her diamond-encrusted watch catching the soft glow of the crystal chandeliers overhead. In flawless Mandarin, she gestured dismissively toward the waiter attending their table, a tall, composed black man in his early 30s named Marcus Jenkins. "Look at that ape handling our drinks," she sneered, her voice low but laced with venom. "I doubt he could even use a fork without dropping it. Folks like him belong scrubbing floors, not waiting on refined people like us." The table erupted in uneasy chuckles from the executives, who didn't understand a word but sensed the mockery in her tone. They shifted in their seats, exchanging awkward glances, but no one dared interrupt the powerhouse across from them. Marcus poured the vintage Bordeaux with steady hands, his expression a mask of professional indifference. At 34, he'd endured far worse in the 9 months since he'd taken this job. But tonight, a quiet fire burned in his dark eyes, a resolve honed from years of navigating storms that would have broken lesser men. Victoria, heiress to Chun Global and notorious for her haughty demeanor even among Asia's elite, viewed Americans as naive upstarts and black people as relics of a lesser era. That one likely dropped out of school before learning to read properly. She continued in Mandarin, savoring the cruelty like a fine wine. In this country, they call handing jobs to his kind equality. What a farce. What Victoria didn't know was that Marcus understood every syllable. He spoke Mandarin with the fluency of a native, held a doctorate in East Asian geopolitics from Yale, and had spent 6 years as a senior advisor at the U.S. consulate in Shanghai. 9 months ago, Marcus had been Dr. Marcus Jenkins, a rising star in international relations, authoring papers that shaped policy debates in Washington. His downfall came swift and unjust. A rival colleague, envious of his rapid ascent, fabricated evidence implying Marcus had shared sensitive trade secrets with Chinese officials. The ensuing Department of Justice probe dragged on for 8 grueling months, splashed across headlines, alienating allies and shattering his career. Cleared of all charges, the forgeries exposed as clumsy plants, it was too late. No think tank or embassy wanted the taint of scandal, no matter the exoneration. More scotch, Victoria barked in halting English, mangling the words on purpose, as if proper pronunciation might sully her status. Marcus refilled her glass without a word, noting how she avoided his gaze, treating him like furniture. The executives fidgeted, but the promise of billion-dollar contracts kept them silent. As the evening wore on, Victoria transformed the dinner into a theater of degradation, her comments growing bolder, testing the limits of decorum. Over the next hour, she peppered her conversation with barbs, alternating between Mandarin and English to maximize the sting. "This ape probably dreams of a fat tip to feed his habits," she quipped in Mandarin while Marcus served the appetizers, steamed dumplings laced with truffle oil. "Here, they believe money erases inferiority. How quaint." The executives forced smiles, oblivious to the full venom, but sensing the undercurrent of malice. Edward Lawson, CEO of Midwest Electronics, cleared his throat repeatedly, steering talk toward supply chains, but Victoria yanked it back. "You Americans are so soft," she switched to English, her accent thick for effect. "You pretend elevating these types is advancement, but just watch him trembling like a leaf." Marcus's hands weren't shaking from fear. It was restrained fury, memories flooding back of negotiating multi-million-dollar pacts with Chinese dignitaries in D.C., while Victoria likely lounged at galas in Beijing, coasting on inherited wealth. His academic journey had been meteoric, a Yale dissertation on U.S.-China trade dynamics, cited in congressional hearings, fluency in multiple dialects from immersion programs, and a role brokering deals that stabilized volatile markets. All erased by jealousy. His accuser, Philip Grant, now occupied the office that should have been his. "Check, please," Victoria demanded in fractured English, snapping her fingers. "And tell the manager I'm Victoria Chun of Chun Global. Maybe he's seen my name in the papers." Marcus suppressed a bitter smile. Victoria Chun, a very executive he'd corresponded with for 4 years, arranging investor summits. She'd once commended his insights in a formal letter, dubbing him the American who grasps our nuances. But in his crisp white shirt and black vest, he was invisible, just another service worker. "You know America's flaw?" she hissed in Mandarin, pointing at him. "You preach equality, but nature dictates superiors and inferiors. That one likely has kids scattered everywhere, crammed in some rundown tenement. That's their way, chaos and entitlement." Edward Lawson squirmed, murmuring, "Victoria, perhaps we should discuss the terms." She waved him off with a bejeweled hand. "No, let me educate you on real-world hierarchies. It's why we thrive where you falter." Marcus cataloged every word, his mind a vault of evidence. The pinnacle of her cruelty came when she beckoned him closer. "You," she said in English, tone commanding like summoning a pet. Name? Marcus, ma'am. Marcus, she echoed disdainfully. Ever heard of China, Marcus? Pointed on a map. The executives froze, the air heavy with discomfort. This crossed into outright cruelty, even for cutthroat boardrooms. Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied evenly. Victoria burst into laughter. Adorable. He knows geography. In Mandarin, she added. I'd wager my empire he's never left Illinois. That's when the atmosphere shifted. Marcus met her eyes not with subservience, but with a piercing clarity that hinted at depths she couldn't fathom. Each insult had steeled him, transforming humiliation into a weapon. During a lull between courses, as Victoria resumed her tirade, that ape couldn't count change without help. His kind leeches off welfare, Marcus slipped to the staff lounge. He typed a quick message on his phone to Professor Elena Wong, his old Yale mentor, now heading the Institute for Asian Affairs in D.C. Elena, urgent. At Golden Lotus in Chicago, overheard Victoria Chun of Chun Global spewing racist bile in Mandarin, assuming no one understands. Recorded it all. Meet tomorrow. The response pinged back swiftly. Marcus? We've missed you. Yes, absolutely. Chen's under scrutiny back home for overseas misconduct. This could tip the scales. Back at the table, Victoria amped up her performance, mimicking caricatured accents in broken English. You clean table good? Or just carry like trained beast? The executives fell silent, some excusing themselves to the restroom. Undeterred, Victoria pulled out her phone and started filming. Here in Chicago's finest spot, demonstrating how Americans train their black staff, she narrated in Mandarin. See how obedient under firm hand? In China, we recognize roles blacks for labor, never intellect. Simple science. Edward Lawson bolted up. I need air. Others followed, leaving Victoria smug. Hierarchy works, she continued recording. This waiter exemplifies order. He knows his spot. Marcus, clearing plates, discreetly filmed her filming, capturing the glee in her eyes. Every frame was damning. Rants on racial hierarchies, slurs against black Americans, boasts of cultural dominance. You folk grant too much to servants, she prattled on in Mandarin, still taping. That one thinks he merits our pay. Marcus decided then, enough. He pocketed his phone, archiving strategies alongside the evidence. Victoria was crafting her own undoing, oblivious that her words could ignite a diplomatic firestorm. I'll share this online tomorrow, she said, stopping the video. My network in China will roar with laughter at America's folly. Marcus allowed a faint grin. Indeed, it would captivate audiences just not as she envisioned. As dessert arrived, silky mango pudding, Victoria pushed for a finale. Hey, she said in Mandarin, eyeing Marcus. I'll school this beast on pecking order. In English, you dance like ape? Show funny. The room hushed. Marcus set down the tray, squared his shoulders, and smiled a smile that made Edward Lawson, returning, nearly spill his coffee. Miss Chun, Marcus replied in impeccable Mandarin, his intonation refined and authoritative. I think you're mistaking this restaurant for a circus. The silence was absolute. Victoria blanched, her poise shattering like fine china. Fluent Mandarin from the ape? It was inconceivable. What? What? She stuttered in English, grasping for control. Marcus switched seamlessly. Fascinating how wealth is mistaken for wisdom, lineage for integrity, and position for worth. The executives gaped. Edward, versed in interpreters, recognized Marcus's command of nuances only scholars possessed. You speak Chinese, Victoria whispered aghast. Mandarin classical and contemporary plus Cantonese, 2 dialects, English, Spanish, and some Korean, Marcus affirmed, blending languages. But you've likely gathered that over the past 2 hours, the horror dawned. He'd comprehended every slur, every theory of inferiority. Impossible, she gasped. You're just a black waiter from Chicago. I am a waiter, he conceded calmly. But also Dr. Marcus Jenkins, Ph.D. in East Asian geopolitics from Yale, expert in U.S.-China trade protocols. He paused. 6 years at the U.S. consulate in Shanghai, facilitating deals worth billions, authoring 19 papers on bilateral relations. Edward jumped up. You're Marcus Jenkins? Your work on supply chain ethics, I cited it in our last board meeting. You vanished from the scene last year. Victoria's world tilted. Why? This job. Life's humbling lessons, Marcus said. Falsely accused of leaking intel cleared, but blacklisted. So I serve tables, absorbing daily barbs in Mandarin from patrons assuming ignorance. He brandished his phone. Barbs on race, intellect, hierarchies by birth and color, including your video expounding Chinese supremacy over black inferiors. Victoria turned ashen. You wouldn't. Record. Naturally, he said. All of it, plus our prior professional TAC managed 4 summits your firm attended. You praised my reports in 2021. Of course, in suits among elites, I was visible. She stammered, exposed. The trash she demeaned was a peer who'd influenced her empire. You claimed my kind ignores global affairs, Marcus pressed. Yet I negotiated pacts benefiting Chun Global. The executives murmured in shock, realizing they'd witnessed a diplomatic titan endure racial torment. And your racial intellect theories? He queried. What might Beijing think of a national promoting such abroad? Victoria pleaded faintly. Please. Marcus softened. Would it excuse your actions if I were merely a waiter? Dignity isn't earned by degrees or dollars. The manager approached, alerted by the tension. Dr. Jenkins? I had no idea. We'll revise our protocols. Marcus nodded. It's broader, treating others without consequence. Victoria offered, perhaps a deal. He shook his head. For 9 months, I've documented such prejudice. All I seek is you leaving wiser, bested by a black American you deemed worthless. Let that linger. Victoria rose unsteadily, fleeing into the Chicago night, her empire teetering. Marcus stood tall, dignity intact, proving character trumps fortune. 3 months later, headlines blared. Chun heiress loses $700 million in deals amid racism scandal, per the Chicago Tribune. Chun Global shed 65% of U.S. partnerships. Her family sidelined her, citing reflection time. Back in Beijing, she became a cautionary tale, isolated and disgraced. Marcus, meanwhile, soared. The confrontation footage exploded online, amassing 60 million views, hailing him as an icon of resilience. Ivy League invites poured in. The State Department reinstated him with a directorship and 70% salary bump. Not vengeance, he told NPR. It's affirming dignity's universality. He consulted part-time at Golden Lotus, now a hub for equality advocates, birthing the Jenkins Accord, industry-wide anti-bias mandates. At a DC Diversity Summit 6 months on, Edward Lawson gripped Marcus's hand. You showed us. Underestimating anyone is fatal in business. Victoria, secluded in Beijing, watched her world crumble, arrogance yielding to regret. The priciest education money couldn't buy, prejudice extracts its due. What do you think about the themes of injustice and verbal violence in everyday life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe such encounters demand confrontation, or is silence sometimes wiser? Take a stand and let us know your perspective. Your insights could spark important discussions.